Hey gamers, welcome back to the channel. I want to share some useful tips that can help you and your team on day 1 Deepstone Crypt. These are some extremely useful tips that some you may know, or some you may not have thought of. Either way, share this video with your team, make sure you're all on the same page, and let's get started with the tips. First tip is going in with the correct mindset. What I mean here is not to overthink things. One example I like to use is for day 1 Prophecy. We approached this with a mindset that this could be soloed. So every encounter we viewed as, this could be done by one person, so how should we proceed? Now for raids, this is different. 6 members, but not every raid encounter requires 6 members, as some eventually get 2 to 3 man. But what you want to think here is you maybe need teams. Plan out a set of teams of 2 or a set of teams of 3, so if it comes down to a split encounter, you're ready with organizing. When thinking of the encounter, try not to overthink it. I'm not saying don't think outside the box, but sometimes the answer is so clear you might miss it. This mainly has to do with speed. Many teams are trying to race and miss obvious mechanics or misinterpret a result that will throw them off. A great example here is day 1 Garden, where we killed the Minotaur under the Harpy and it started the encounter. So we were dead set on this is how to start the encounter and completely ignored the box by the wall for way too long. When looking at solving the encounter, the death screen can also give some major hints. Look at the column titles and figure out what that means. And maybe there's an object or relic you need to pick up. Make sure you test all buttons with it. Grenade, super, block, anything. Learn these and make sure you can tell which one worked. Don't slap your whole hand on the keyboard and go, "It worked!" and not know what button made it work. Lastly, for mechanics, the raids are usually an overall lesson, and each encounter carries forward a certain mechanic, and then at the boss, they put it all together. For example, Garden teaches you the box and tethering in the beginning, towers in the second encounter, moats and dunking at towers in the third encounter, and then the boss is all of them put together. Keep this in mind when you complete an encounter and move on to the next one. The second tip is so dumb obvious, but I will expand on it. It's don't die. This is the reason day 1 raids are so hard. Stop focusing on pure damage and more on using as many damage phases as possible. You can keep wiping and not killing the boss in 2 phases, or you can use all your phases up during rage and get it clear because you didn't focus solely on damage. This might impact your loadouts as they might be more geared to staying alive rather than DPS, and that is totally fine. Speaking of staying alive, let's talk about some of the most important items to keep in mind. Protective Light and Warmind's Protection will be your saving grace. Both of these provide a 50% damage resistance to enemies. This is massive, but they can only be procced certain ways. Protective Light is the last second resist mod. They will only activate when you have a charge with light, and you just had your shield broken, otherwise known as getting red barred. Warmind's Protection requires enemies to be near a Warmind cell. Pair this with Global Reach, and that area is massive. This mod is insane if your team is just leaving Warmind cells around for mod use. Please, if I see any of you running stat mods in the first slot, I might just lose it. I've touched on this before in my armor videos, but I'll link the beautiful write-up on this below again. The normal resist mods are way overlooked. These mods each provide a 10% reduction in damage, and adding more diminishes these returns. Although, the concussive dampener mod starts at 15%, and its diminishing returns is much more forgiving. So what I recommend is going into day 1 with 1 minor, 1 major, 1 boss resist, and then 2 concussive dampeners. After you see the first encounter, if there's no champions or boss, switch off the boss resist. Add another concussive or minor, if there's a lot of explosive damage or more minors, and that should be the play. Do that for each encounter. One more thing to tag on to the idea of staying alive. What's even better than resistance is simply not getting shot. In one of my videos, I talk about blinding nades and concussion grenades, and what weapons that can roll on these, and which one you should use. Check that out. But I also wanted to touch on the use of other suppression methods like Cellular Suppression Warmind mod, and the Tractor Cannon or Queen Breaker. All these items, and maybe even Stasis, can make it so much easier to survive by completely disabling your enemy. Alright, enough talk on surviving, we already know that. So what else do I got? One could be, artifact power is being disabled, but artifact mods can still be earned and used. XP is still going to be huge, and teams that can hit that final column on the artifact could gain access to the insane artifact mods that could tip the scales. Having a team made with good distribution of class types might help in certain encounters. Overall, 2 Warlocks to chain Wells with Phoenix Protocol, a Titan for Weapons of Light, and a Hunter for a debuff is probably the core of a team, and then adding more of a certain class's preference afterwards. But what if you have enough time to get 2 characters up to light? Maybe you can make an audible and switch characters. But wait, so how should you level your characters? If you have 3, you should level like this, assuming you have the time. Figure out the character you want to raid with. Start Beyond Light on them and level them normally, switch to your next chosen class of what you would have chose, then end on your least preferred. This allows you to end week 1 on your least preferred class. Then week 2, you can start out on this class and rotate back to your preferred class before the raid and have that as your highest. If time is running short, you can always skip a class to get to your preferred class up the light. This again all matters on if you think you have enough time though. Also regarding this power level, 1230 base, not with artifact, is the final encounter contest modifier. So that is the goal, but also make sure your weapons hit this. Weapon light determines damage, so make sure those are some of your highest. You might actually want to hold on to a bunch of infusion weapons in case you need to switch weapons and bring a different weapon up the light, maybe farm some blues and have them ready to go. Speaking of this damage, let's talk about that. I'm going to link 2 beautiful spreadsheets below. One being the damage modifier spreadsheet, telling of all the buffs, debuffs, stacking, and more. This will help you gain an idea on how entering a damage phase should happen, as well as ideas you could use for debuffs or buffs. The other spreadsheet I will link is the one telling of all DPS values. This is constantly updated to see the best weapons to use. This includes burst DPS, sustained DPS, and total damage. Day 1, you might need a high total damage weapon due to you dealing lower damage overall. But you could also look for maybe a special weapon for DPS and have a dedicated special finisher teammate who will constantly refill the team with ammo. Both these spreadsheets are definitely subject to change in Beyond Light as new weapons could become king like right away. Alright gamers, I believe that's all the tips I can think of right now. If you have any others, leave them down below to help each other out. Good luck to all the teams going in on day 1. Remember to get some sleep, don't get mad at each other, switch up some roles, to try something for yourself, and have fun. If you like this video and the tips, I appreciate the like. If you want to see more in other Beyond Light videos, including a raid guide, consider subscribing. Almost at 10K. Let's hit that. Share this video with your team and be ready to enter the raid on the same page. That's all I got. Stay tuned for more Beyond Light videos, and I will see you gamers in the next one.